join us. Family on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We should all be live right now. Let me double check. Oh, here we are. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to our live today on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm myisha T. Hill, curator of the Heal Your Way Forward Collective, formerly known as Check Your Privilege. And just leading us in some conversations today. Today, I want to talk about what is a co-conspirator. So I'll hit save so you can see what we're talking about today is what is a co-conspirator. Thank you for joining me from wherever you are. Couple of things I want to say before I get started, because here's one of the things that I know is coming up. Hey, Sam, thanks for being here. The first thing that I continuously say, because it's on my mind, I'm going to scale it. Bell Hooks reminds us that hopelessness breeds inactivity. And so there's a lot happening in the world right now. And I'm sure many people are feeling the hit of what's happening globally as well as in the collective. And so I just want everyone to remind everyone that come back to the breath when it feels overwhelming. And I know it's hard, right? Because the government is shut down and you could possibly be worrying about friends, loved ones, and associates. And one of the things that I've been trying to share with everyone is with the government being shut down, it's a great time to consider the future of collective care. Hey, Francia. So for me, thinking about the government shutting down, it looks like buying extra food if possible, putting away extra money, because I could definitely see the rise of collective and community care over the next few weeks. So don't essentially freak out, but just help prepare for what's coming, what's here. Just help prepare for the future if you can. If you're a person with just be prepared for more collective and mutual aid calls to action. But it's easy to be hopeless. Don't allow what's happening in our government to bring you down, and it's not easy saying that, but it is something to consider. So that today's conversation, I really want to talk about what is a co-conspirator. And so it is actually the first chapter of the book, Heal Your Way Forward, The Co-Conspirator's Guide to an Anti-Racist Future. And it is the chapter where I talk about the co-conspirator's journey. And I started off with a quote by Oprah: no matter where you are in your journey, that's exactly where you need to be. The next road is always ahead. And that's a quote by Oprah Winfrey in this first chapter. And I thought it was really important that I and we start to define words and what words mean. And so for many of us on this journey who were liberation teachers, we talk about the notion of we don't need allies, we need co-conspirators. And how I think of co-conspirators, and I've taught this in workshops before, and you may have heard me say this before in the past, is I think of liberation work like as a football stadium, right? There's team liberation and team oppression. So on the liberation team, the allies would be the fans in the stadium that are like, go team, go team. You hold up your sign, you go to your protest, you're just cheering everybody on, right? When I think about a co-conspirator's role is to be on the field and protect the quarterback. And who is the quarterback? Black or indigenous liberation teachers are the quarterback. And the role of co-conspirators is to be the defense on the team or the offense. So your role is not passive, it's active. You are actively showing up for collective liberation. You are actively taking a stance to support Black and indigenous teachers who are facilitating the work. I call it healing work of healing. But I want to be very, very clear. I did not coin the phrase co-conspirator. In fact, I'm going to bring up an article. A lot of people credit Bettina Love to the use of co-conspirator. I believe that was Bettina Love's TED Talk. And she's done lots of work around the word. But the first time it's appeared in print is in 2015 from Dr. Michelle Taylor, also known as Feminista Jones. And she wrote an article there is an article she's featured in and why we need co-conspirators and not allies, and how white folks can help fight against racism. And so always wanting to model, citing my source. This is my source when and the context when I say co-conspirators, this is the source. Dr. Patina Love also is a source of that word. Does a lot of work in academia, does a lot of work around the word co-conspirator. But again, for me, I think of co-conspirators as people on the football field, not the folks in the signs cheering the team, but you're actually on the football field. And sometimes I like to even think of them as the quarterbacks, and the head coaches of Team Liberation would be your Black and Indigenous liberation teachers. They would be the head coach on that team towards individual and collective liberation. I was screen sharing a little bit for our friends on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So if you want to see the article that I'm pointing to, I'm going to put it in the comments of YouTube. So it will appear on YouTube, so that you all can have a look at the article yourself. And hopefully it supports you on your journey. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about, what does myisha mean when she says a co-conspirator? So when I think about co-conspirator, I think about Dr. Taylor, or Feminista Jones, who introduced it in her work on abolitionist teaching. And she, like me, defines co-conspirator as not someone who calls out injustice, but puts themselves on the front lines to disrupt them. And I've seen many people in white bodies in the Heal Your Way Forward Collective and other groups actually put themselves in the situation to actively disrupt it when it shows up. So co-conspirators, for me, they don't just read books. They actually show up, speak up, and stand in the gap, especially when it's uncomfortable. So to be a co-conspirator means that you are actively leaning into your discomfort, and you are actively showing up where it's possible, because we also have to know, with disability and disability justice, that sometimes bodies aren't always available to be put on the front lines. And that's why it's super important to know your role in the movement, right? So it's about showing up, speaking up, taking actions at work, standing in the gap, especially when there's discomfort. And I don't want to say the difference between the two are semantics, but it's about proximity to power and the willingness to act, and who you center when harm is present. Allyship, proximity to power. Co-conspiratorship, your willingness to act, to decenter yourself and show up when people are being harmed. We don't need more people in white bodies saying the wrong thing. And this is what we're seeing now. What I'm seeing now with white co-conspirators is the co-conspirators who took all the workshops in 2020. So you know the lingo, you know what to say, but you don't know what to do. And that is what's happening in liberation work. You know what to say. You know how to say it. You know the context to look in it, but you don't know what to do because you're caught up in comfort. Allies, people who consider themselves allies, are caught up in comfort. So let's talk about my 3 points around co-conspirators. 1, a co-conspirator is willing to risk comfort to challenge harm. A co-conspirator means that you will see something and you will say something. You know how you're on BART if you live in the Bay Area, or wherever you live at, you see the train sign. If you see something, say something, right? That is the role of a co-conspirator. And let me put this on the screen so you all can follow me on TikTok, etc. So number 1, a co-conspirator risks comfort to challenge harm. This means that sometimes your relationships might be on the line, and you have to think about what's more important, my liberation journey or making people in my family comfortable. As a co-conspirator, you have to be willing to risk your comfort. If you are not willing to risk your comfort, I'm curious, what are you doing? And when I say risk your comfort, it's not even just about having conversations with people you don't agree with. That's the other thing. A lot of people are out here still wasting your time trying to argue with people who don't believe what you believe. That's not the goal here, friends. The goal is to find value alignment amongst misalignment and keep moving forward, right? What are you willing to risk? What comforts are you willing to risk to challenge the system that we live in? How will you remain uncomfortable? That's the first thing I think about when I think about the co-conspirator. The second thing I think about when I think about the co-conspirator, what a co-conspirator is or what it means. Let me edit it so you guys can see it on the screen. Co-conspirators, let me add that there. Give me a second. A co-conspirator will listen, learn, and act consistently. Co-conspirators will make it a practice to listen, learn, and act consistently, not perfectly. There's a difference between consistency and perfection. It's not a weekend project. This is a lifelong commitment, and commitment requires our attention. And sometimes, because there's so much going on in the world, we don't know how to keep our attention and point our attention on the things that we want to work on. Hi, Angela. Thank you for being here. Thanks for subscribing to us. So, co conspirators, one, you risk comfort to challenge harm. And two, you listen, learn, and act consistently, not perfection, not perfectly. Is consistently every day? No. Where are you all learning that you got to be in it every day? I don't know, because I'm not in it every day. So if I'm not in it every day, I can say I'm in it every day because I live in the anti-Black world and the Black body and everywhere I go, but I don't live that way anymore either. That's a scarcity of my own thinking. So as a co-conspirator, your role is to listen, learn, and act. Not just, I'm just listening and learning. No, it's time to commit to consistent action. And maybe you don't know how to do that. So always wanting to recommend, if you are looking for some one-on-one support, I am doing one-on-one IEP sessions with folks who want to go deeper on the work. If you're interested, send a message. Happy to help you on your journey. Happy to help you with one-on-one time to figure out, am I being consistent? Am I just listening and learning? Am I just donating my money? Or do I actually have goals in place? And this has been so fun. I just had a great client call doing these IEPs with folks. This has been like the most fun I've had in the 8 years I've been doing this, is helping people be consistent and accountable on their journey. I love that I could do this with individuals and the collective. This is beautiful. But this is a lifelong commitment. Sam gave us a really great quote. I think I still have it, Sam. It was so good. Investing requires me to commit to the long-term work, while donations are short-term. Thank you, Sam. Investing requires me to commit to long-term. Are you willing to commit? Are you ready to commit? Let's do it if you are. Count me in. Right? Why is my mail app open? That hurts. The third thing that I want to say is allyship centers the self. Hey, Janine. Allyship centers the individual, while co-conspiratorship centers. I'm going to change that. If you're on Substack and you see folks like, hey, members of our Co-Conspirators Collective are here too. So we just get to know each other and we're like friends. And this is like a real thing. Promise you. Go read Sam's Substack article today. I love that article. I think I'm going to be reposting that article over and over again because people seem to think it doesn't even matter anymore. We're in a new cycle. So read Sam's article on cultivism, on cults today. It's great. Over on Substack. But the third thing I have is that allyship centers the self and co-conspiracy centers individual and collective liberation. Is this a cult? Sure. Sure. Allyship centers the self and liberation centers individual and collective liberation. And that might be countercultural to say, and that's okay. I'm going to say it anyway, so you all know it. But for me, allyship centers the self, and co-conspiracy centers individual and collective liberation. You have both. It's a both and, not a binary, not just one. And I think one of the things that's happened in liberation work is that we have been so focused on one right way and rugged individualism. We don't even realize that we're still practicing rugged individualism in liberation spaces. You know, we tell people to decenter whiteness. Decentering whiteness is not the same as decentering yourself. So my countercultural approach to this work is there's your individual work that must be centered to see this work as healing. And then there's the collective work. Not just all collective, because you have to make space for you and your journey as a whole human being. If you're not making space for you and your journey as a whole human being, I'm just curious, why are you on the journey? Is it just about other people? It can't just be about, oh, I gotta go save the black children on the south side of Chicago. Oh, I gotta go protest. No, it has to be you and. Decentering whiteness is not the same as decentering yourself. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying. Whiteness is a socially constructed narrative to uphold white supremacy. So decenter what that looks like in your life. But if I keep it 100, a lot of people in white bodies, it's like, I need you to be okay with centering yourself for a season. That is the only way to see this as healing work. Decentering yourself for a season. Is that making sense? I hope so. And that's my third point. So when we talk about the 3 core points of being a co-conspirator, we have to, 1, know that a co-conspirator risks comfort to challenge harm. 2, a co-conspirator will listen, learn, and act with consistency, not perfection. And 3, allyship centers the self and co-conspiracy centers liberation. So this work is about dismantling systems within ourselves and dismantling systems in the what is that called? The system. But I'm going to keep it 100. I don't think about the system. A lot of people, maybe it's like my own little gypsy spirit. I don't really think about the system, and I get into it a lot with people because they were like, everything's political and you have to think about the system. No, I don't have to think about anything. I can choose to. The problem is that we have spent so much time, and I can specifically speak on the women's rights movement. Second wave feminism was all about burn it down, tear down the system. We're going to do all of these things to dismantle white supremacy and blah, 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 blah. We have not focused on our individual journeys, and we have not focused on our interpersonal relationships. And that's why the movement looks like what it looks like today, because it's been about the system and not about us as individuals, our collective relationships, and how once you do yourself and your relationships, you've already built that parallel system. We can't destroy what's already been built. We cannot destroy a system that's functioning the way they need it to be functioning. They need us to be enslaved to their system. And so fighting their system is what they need us to do, to be exhausted and tired. The goal is the parallel system. The goal is to be in it and not of it, which means let this collapse, but let us do our work as individuals and in our interpersonal relationships so we can be ready for what's new. Because what's happening is the system is going to collapse and we're going to rebuild the same thing, because that's all we know. We don't know dreaming. We don't know creativity. We don't know intuition. We don't know trust of ourselves and others. And so what will happen is once the system collapses, the same thing will get rebuilt. That is why the work is individual and collective. We will build the same thing if we just keep focusing on a system that is moving the way that's why it's a repeat of history. I've been saying that for weeks. I'm going to work with a visual timeline so I can have some memes and things. But if you look at this chunk that we're living in with this administration, it's everything from the Great Nadir to Reconstruction to Jim Crow to the Civil Rights Act. It is those lessons that were not learned are being presented right now in real time. And my friends in white bodies, you have a choice. You have to look back and say, okay, this is all that happened in history. We can even bring in the Holocaust. We can even bring in Japanese internment camps. Everything historical that has happened in his story is this whole administration. And if we look at it from history and we can see what they did and did not do, that is the opposite of this system. Example, they just desegregated schools. And they just said, Black people and white people go to school together, figure it out. So you just gonna send people together, but you're not gonna offer them opportunities to tell their stories, to see that we're all whole and human, that we all struggle? Of course not, because they need us to fight each other. This system works the way it's working because we're fighting each other and we're trying to tear it down the way that they needed to operate. We're all enslaved to the system, whether you like it or not. My ancestors were the first form of enslavement, and once they got rid of that, the wealthy white men had to move into the Industrial Revolution and figure out how to industrialize. We are the original AI. I don't care what anybody says. We are the original artificial intelligence. We have to be. Why do you think they've reduced school Don't you all remember? I don't know how old you are, but my recess was 45 minutes to an hour. And I remember 2 15-minute breaks. I remember art classes. I remember music classes. They are taking down that because if they can keep you in your brain all the time and operating like a computer versus having other ways to express yourselves, you are more easily controlled. Just want to throw that out there. And so when you think about what it means to be a co-conspirator, you think about like, how do I risk comfort over harm? How am I listening, learning, and acting? And part of that acting is somatic liberation. How am I in my body? How am I sensing my needs so I can be able to give to others? How am I centering myself in the collective? And let that system burn down. Let it fall apart. The ancestors are going to do their work or whatever you believe in. But I want you to really do some deep work. If I could give you something to reflect on tonight, I would reflect on, am I an ally or am I a co-conspirator? Am I an ally or am I a co-conspirator? And maybe watch the replay on YouTube. Our YouTube is Heal Your Way Forward. So you can get some context on my difference between an ally and a co-conspirator. And to give it to you really quickly for those who just came on, think of liberation as a football game. The allies are the fans in the stands, and the co-conspirators are on the field and the head coaches. Team liberation versus team oppression. Your team liberation head coach is a Black or Indigenous person of culture, while your job is to make the plays. If you can see that visually, if you can think about that, and maybe you're a football fan and you're watching the 49ers versus the LA Rams, look at the fans in the stands. Those are allies. But look at the team. Look at the head coach. Who's making the plays? Who's protecting the quarterback to make the major plays? I think of it like a game, because that's how I find joy in the work. So think about this for tonight. Something to chew on is, am I a co-conspirator and am I an ally? And what does it look like for you to listen, learn, and act consistently, not perfectly? Because you can't, I'm sorry, you can, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not sorry, but after being diagnosed with PTSD from social media, there's more to that definition. Don't do this every day. Don't ghost it either. And I know somebody could be watching this live or the replay and say, well, I'm a white person, I have a responsibility. I don't give a damn what your responsibility is. If you don't want your mental health to be impacted, it's not sustainable. It's just not. Sorry, not sorry. It wasn't sustainable for me to be doing this work every day for 4 years only to get sick and have high blood pressure and this and that. And any small thing can trigger me, and I'll have a setback and my body shuts down for days, sometimes weeks. Take it from me. There has been so much secondary trauma. When I used to be a writer for Huffington Post, I wrote about post-secondary trauma and how social media is a tool of post-secondary trauma. And that's why I always say, if someone was murdered, don't look for their death on social media. Don't watch the videos. That is a post-secondary trauma. Everything we see in Gaza, post-secondary trauma. Congo, Sudan, Tigray, us seeing our military fighting civilians in Los Angeles, soon to be Portland, supposedly Chicago. That is all like a post-secondary trauma. And I'm only talking to you guys about that because I've written about it. I've had therapists back me up on it. And to now have a diagnosis that's connected to influence and social media, you cannot do this every day. You got to be consistent, but you can't be perfect. So now a lot of the work for me now as I write new articles for the Heal Your Way Forward Substack is bringing in the mental health component, because Check Your Privilege was started because people in white bodies weren't recognizing how their behaviors impacted the mental health of Black, Indigenous, and bodies of culture. That's how I got started, and bringing it from a mindful, self-compassionate lens. And now 8 years later, it's like, okay, now I need folks in white bodies to get their mental health together because you're going to burn out. And that's what we're seeing right now. The lessons, the workshops, 2020 did not prepare us for this moment. In fact, it's made it worse. Because everybody has the lingo. Everybody knows how to say the right things. Everybody knows how to be an advocate at work. I mean, we've done it. It's been so hardcore. That's why we don't have DEI now. I've had stories, I've done trainings with people at work that have so much bias and fear because somebody in a Black body in 2020 told them that they were trash and they lost their job. It's deep, y'all. And I didn't come this far to get this deep. But please, friends, take care of your mental health. You have to do this work consistently, but not perfectly and not every day. You are not meant to have your nervous system wrecked the way our nervous system's wrecked. Do y'all realize what we've lived through the last 5 years? And those of you who are high end millennials or zennials or baby boomers, we've lived through the economic collapse, the September 11th, the housing crash, Pakistan wars, George Floyd, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, George Floyd, Tamir Rice. And y'all really think we're supposed to just keep going and not recognize the grief that COVID, we're living through a pandemic. It's still a pandemic. I mean, I think we just forgot. We're trying to pretend that we haven't lived through these historical cultural moments and we're not breaking down inside. And I'm the first one to say, and I think because I've become sober, I'm able to actually sit with, holy shit, we've lived through a lot. I'm not numbing myself anymore. I don't have a vice. I mean, there's so much going on in the world. It's easy for me to be like, you know what? There's a bar right there. There's some drinks where I am. There's a whole cabinet. And my favorite is in there. I don't want to numb out. I want to be present to it, but I don't want to be so present that I see it and I get activated and I get triggered and I can't do anything about it. Right? So if you are going to be a co-conspirator and you are going to be taking action, make sure it's sustainable. If you're interested in the Co-Conspirators IEP sessions on Substack, I'll share the information in the chat. To our paid subscribers, if you're on our mailing list, it's going to be in the PS of our emails this month. But that is the difference between a co-conspirator and an ally. So if you're still trying to decide if you're an ally or co-conspirator, ask yourself, am I willing to be asking yourself, sitting with yourself around discomfort and comfort? That's how you'll know if you're an ally or a co-conspirator. Are you a co-conspirator? Are you willing to be uncomfortable? So that's all I have for you all today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on this live. Remember, I had to go live for 30 straight days. It's day 24, I think. It's day 25. 5 more days of daily lives, and then who knows what's next. So I hope this has been helpful for you. You can subscribe to our YouTube at Heal Your Way Forward. Follow us on Substack. Watch the replay on YouTube. You're welcome to grab your copy of Heal Your Way Forward. Doing some campaign updates next week. So just stay tuned. If you're looking to hear my voice, you can get your daily mantras on Apple. What is it called? Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I do what's called forward mantras. They're just daily reminders to help you heal your way forward. And let's just keep going, living into the work. I'll be live tomorrow. I think tomorrow's live. I might start off with the question if you figured out if you're an ally or co-conspirator. If not, tomorrow we'll talk about, I think tomorrow is about the Great White Awakening. So waking up to whiteness. So I appreciate you all. Take bite-sized pieces and baby steps on your journey. It's been a pleasure to be live with you all for this long. A year ago, I would not have been able to be live for 29 minutes. So happy 1 year long COVID recovery to me. And I will see you all again. I just pop up praying that the ancestors will be like, okay, give them a time. But right now, it's just as my spirit allows. I appreciate each and every one of you.